that Nigerians would love to learn from. Of course, elections are around the corner, preparations are in top gear, and it's good for Nigerians to know what it is that is expected of them and how to go about the electioneering process. Okay, so elections, like we all know, is an avenue for Nigerians and, of course, sovereign nations to choose who becomes the leader who sits as its president. And as this is going on, this preparation is going on, some people have said that votes don't count, that one vote wouldn't count. But the question is, why doesn't the vote count? Then comes, and would like to know, rigging in elections in this part of the world is prevalent. What do you see as the reason for rigging, Doctor?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for hosting me and raising this fundamental question, how elections are rigged in Nigeria. Those who want to be partisan in terms of contesting elective offices, in terms of supporting those who occupy elective offices, and those who are really interested in democracy, they need to understand how mandate is handed in Nigeria, or how mandate is stolen or hijacked in Nigeria. And I say this because we are here in another election cycle, and it offers almost 100% chances to replace all the incumbents from fellow to the president of the country. So it is not a little opportunity for a country as big as Nigeria, the biggest Black nation, the biggest nation that holds, or that the world Black call their home. That is why I decided to take interest in that regard, and to research and to share my thoughts. I must tell us that election in Nigeria derives from the kind of democracy we run. Nigeria is not yet a democracy. Nigeria at best is a civil rule. A civil or civilian rule is not the same thing as democracy. Democracy has to do with choices. Democracy has to do with the will of the majority. The way we say it in the local parlance, the majority will have their way, but the minority must be allowed to have their say. In Nigeria, majority are not allowed to have their way. They are not even allowed to have their say. What we have is a pure oligarchy, where some people who have been able to seize the turf, seize the national power base, they install themselves and install those who they want. They do that through rigging. And that is what I want to share with us. They do that through rigging. Rigging simply means thwarting the outcome of an electoral process. Rigging used operationally in the context that I am discussing here, in relation to elections, in relation to electing who should be in charge of any mandate that is being decided by the people. What we have is very clear. Those who have seized the state apparatus, the coercive instruments of the state, those who have seized the treasury, those who have control over the electoral umpires, those who have power over what you call election security, those who decide all these things ultimately will have to decide the outcome of the election at any level, from councillor to the president. If you understand my bearing, you will see that if indeed you want to change a process or even retain it where it is good or bad, there are things you must understand and understand them very clearly. Otherwise, at the end of the day, you'll be playing from the fringes. And in the final analysis, you'll be left with the struggle through the processes of obtaining justice, through election tribunals, through the appeal courts, ultimately to the Supreme Court of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We all know that these processes do not actually guarantee justice because the cost is prohibitive, very, very prohibitive. Even when you are able to afford the cost, you are still not sure of getting justice. We have the case of Imo State, where the person that came forth became first by virtue of the interpretation given the process by the Supreme Court of the same Nigeria. In other words, if even the tribunals and the appeal courts and the Supreme Court will not give you justice justifiably, procedurally, in way and manner as to satisfy that indeed you lost or you won fairly, you need to understand how elections are won and lost so that you take care of yourself and wouldn't have to go to any tribunal. That is the reason why I am interested in discussing how and why elections are rigged in Nigeria. First, let me tell you why elections are rigged. Elections are rigged in Nigeria because well over 80% of Nigerian politicians have no alternative business address. Politics is their life. Politics is their source of income. Politics is their economy. They don't do nothing else. If they leave it, it means starvation. That is where the problem is. Because it means starvation to them, they will do everything humanly possible to ensure that they retain power or get to power. Bear this in mind. That is essentially the fundamental reason why there is this desperation to rig elections in Nigeria. Now, let me tell us how elections are rigged in Nigeria. Then, when I'm done with that, I'll tell you how election rigging in Nigeria can be prevented or at least minimized, because I am not sure we'll be able to really stop the election rigging completely. I am not sure if any country in the world has been able to really, cancel rigging. Finally, I'm not sure. But that's the story for another day. Let us look at how elections are rigged. The very first effort to rig election in Nigeria starts with what you call gerrymandering. Gerrymandering starts with what we even call, delineation of constituencies. Some constituencies that are rather small, too little to be a constituency, are made into constituencies. You will find them in so many places in Nigeria where godfathers have influence. I don't want to talk about North or South or wherever. No, let me leave that out. But I am saying that going by population strength, there are constituencies in Nigeria, federal and state and local government, that are not qualified to be called constituencies, electoral constituencies, so delineated for the same purpose, yet they have become. Why? Because of interest, political interest. They are trying to determine in advance the outcomes of the election by making sure that they have more constituencies in areas where they want to bring or deliver the holder of the mandate, councillor, governor, House of Reps, Senate, ultimately the president, governors. There are constituencies, and these constituencies are determined through delineations offered by the electoral umpires. In Nigerian case, you call them independent National Electoral Commission. You and I know that we need to do away with that word independent because they are not. They are not independent. We all know that. So, but for the sake of nomenclature and to rely on the name offered us by the laws that we are under, that we are operating within its ambience, we are saying Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. INEC, as we know it, is in itself, that is the name INEC, I've just told you, is a problem because it is not independent. What is truthful is the original name, NEC, National Electoral Commission. It was Abdul Salami Abubakar that came in and added INEC, independent to it, making it INEC. This is a story you need to take up for another day. But I will tell you, local government, delineating electoral constituencies, delineating all levels of all levels.
Doctor, can you hear me?
Now, I am to a place like Itebilinof that should, local governments in Nigeria. You ask yourself, why should Itebilinof be a single local government? But it is. And it's regarded as the president of Nigeria. So it's a problem in itself. Now, let me not dwell on that and come down to what we all need to consider. If in the 2023 general elections, especially as it has to do with the office of the president, depending on your interest anyway. Election are not on top of election day as an aspirant, as somebody who is interested in an aspirant or candidate, because on election day, aspiration must have ceased. You have candidates representing political parties. So ultimately, we are talking about candidates on election day. Candidates on election day stand no chance if they are not in a position to take care of the following, because that is how votes are generated, that's how the votes are counted, that is how the votes are collated, that is how the votes are rigged. In Nigeria, let me use the example of the presidential election, because that is one thing I know will unify all of us present on this forum and in this meeting. There are some figures I want you to check. What you call voting units in Nigeria, voting units, the number of voting units in Nigeria is 177,000. If you are going for the office of the president, you must be represented in at least 80% of these 177,000 polling units. You must be physically present there through your trusted, die-hard supporters who are ready to vote, ensure you that your supporters vote and defend the vote. I'll come back to what will happen when you must have voted. But first, let me finish with the arm that has to do with even voting. You see, voting in Nigeria, we have been trying to transit from what you call the analog process, manual process, to electronic. And electronic voting should be said to have been achieved in the last Electoral Act Amendment. The Electoral Act Amendment has allowed electronic accreditation. It has allowed electronic transmission of results. The implication of this legal provision is that if you are not electronically accredited, you are not supposed to vote. If your representatives in those remote polling units and polling booths do not know this, there will be manual transmission of those results. If they do so, if there is no dissension, nobody will discountenance such fraudulent vote. That is one level that I want you to hold. I want to bring in something else also. You see, when you come to, I'm still talking about election day. In election day, aspirants, unless where you have a single candidate who is running unopposed, then there is likely not to be a problem. But you can't even rule it out altogether. But where it comes to contestation, where you have 2, 3 political parties contesting for a given office through their candidates, there will be attempt to rig the outcome. They will try to intimidate supporters of a particular candidate to ensure that a candidate emerges, somebody of their own choice. The issue of intimidation is fundamental. You will see it in thuggery, you will see it in even physical warfare. You will see guns, you see machetes, you see clubs, you see these things are really exhibited and used on the supporters and the voters who are predisposed to deliver a particular candidate. That is rigging. That is rigging. It is rigging, the kind of rigging you call, vote suppression. When you suppress the votes of a candidate in the areas where he is very strong, ultimately, when all the votes are collated, his figures will certainly come down, because where he is strong is made weak. Where he could have scored even 1 million, scoring 100,000 becomes very, very difficult, because his supporters have been bullied, have been assaulted, chased away from polling booths and polling units and collation centers. That is one major way of rigging. Any party at all must be interested in this, because it does not matter whether you are a ruling party or whether you are the chief opposition. There are places where you are not strong, and your capacity to retain office as an incumbent will be encumbered if votes are suppressed in areas, in polling units, in wards, in local governments, in states where you are very strong. Ultimately, there will be overall suppression of the outcomes of your votes. Once that happens, you will see that somebody that was beaten or that would have lost is now a victor. He wins. Only the tribunal can upturn it. That is one level of it. Another way they rig, another way they rig elections, which I want us to pay attention to. There are things you call sensitive materials. One of them is the electoral, what you call the result sheet. The result sheet is actually marked with some security features. In other words, if the supporters and representatives of political parties and candidates are not aware of the features that will tell them which represent what you may call the original, they may allow fake result sheets to be used. If they don't know those distinguishing features, which are actually inserted from the origin where those result sheets were printed, they are embedded, and only INEC can distinguish it. It can just be INEC written on it, but it is a watermark. That watermark, if you don't know that that watermark is there, as somebody representing a party or a candidate, you will see a result sheet. The result sheets, the fake and the original will look identical. Only those who are trained, whose eyes know, because they are already trained to recognize those marks, those eyes, those people, those representatives will go straight looking for those marks. If they don't see those marks, they will insist that this is not the original. And if you do not have the original result sheet, do not vote. There is no point, because the results have already been written somewhere else with the original. And INEC will recognize only the original result sheets that they issued. It does not matter who collected those original result sheets. It's not the business of INEC. And that is why the representatives of political parties and candidates must know the distinguishing features of the original result sheet. If they don't know this, they are on their own, they are lost. At the end of the day, they will win the election, but they will win only in the polling booth and collation center, but the result, held by INEC is not the original result sheet. And INEC is bound by law to recognize only the results computed with their own result sheet. This is where the people who are master riggers go for. They go for the original result sheet. They can leave you to wriggle, make noise, do whatever you want to do in a polling units, polling booths, collation centers at the worst local government to state, even up to federal, determining the president of the country. But they are holding on to the original result sheet, and that they will figure out how to put in for INEC consideration. And INEC is legally bound to recognize only that. That said, I want to also bring in another issue. You see, the amended Electoral Act. Hello.
You go into the next issue you're about to bring in. What are some tips that you'd like to give to voters on the election day, features they should look out for so that they don't waste their time in the polling units?
I can't. I don't work in INEC, but I know this because I have been involved, I have observed, I have monitored the elections since 1999, right? Now, it is for the candidates. They have the right to insist on knowing what constitutes the original and the fake. Now, there is another thing they need to monitor. They need to, in answering your question, they need to monitor something. They need to be sure that the sensitive materials are issued by the authority or authorized institution that to keep those materials and releasing them with themselves as witnesses. For example, you have a Central Bank of Nigeria. Central Bank of Nigeria is supposed to be storing our sensitive materials until Godwin Mefor, out of the blues, believes that he can become president. I don't know whether he wants to sit the CBN and write his own results because he's holding the result sheets. And even INEC chairman has said that they are considering changing INEC as their bank for sensitive materials, wherever INEC decides, whether to keep it with CBN, with doubtful Mefor, so be it. If they decide to leave it with Mefor, who is a card-carrying member of APC, fine. If all the political parties keep quiet, that's their own problem.
Doctor, are you there?
And kept in the branches of the CBN where they have a branch, or they move it to the closest branch of the election must make themselves available where the sensitive materials must be released. If they don't do that, they're on their own. If they manage to deploy, without ensuring that the sensitive materials, especially the election results and the ballot papers, are intact and released at their own instance, it means that fake campaign that must be ensured. Let me also bring in other things they must do on election day. You see, you are a candidate and a political party representative. It's your job to ensure fairness for your party. Accreditation must be by beavers, the machine. You must insist on it. You shouldn't, if they keep quiet, if they don't insist on beavers being the only way of accrediting the voters, there is a major problem there. The major problem is that some political parties will use money, use intimidation, use pressure to get the presiding and other electoral officers to use manual accreditation. Let me tell you the danger with manual accreditation. Manual accreditation is done with a voter's card. The voter's card you see some people carrying do not belong to them. You know, as we speak, some candidates are buying voters' cards already. They are buying voters' cards. Why are they buying it? Okay, if you buy the voters' cards and later return the cards to the owners because you want them to vote for you, well, it's bad enough. But when you mop up the voters' cards from 5,000, 10,000, and perhaps more, when you do so, we know it has been the practice in Nigeria. And I'm drawing the attention of all of us gathered here and attention of all Nigerians who want democracy to understand that voters' cards are purchased by politicians, by candidates who want to win by hook or crook. If that is the case, only beavers method of accreditation will check that. You know why? With beavers will ensure that the holder of the card is the actual owner of the card. That's very simple. And what that means is that beavers is relying on what you call your digital biometric identity, fingerprints, facial expression recognition. That is the only thing beavers will recognize. And beavers has been modified to the point that if your fingerprint doesn't work, because maybe you are a hard worker, a laborer, and your thumbs have been peeled off by the kind of job you do, fine. Beavers says, let me see your face. Your face, your eye. These are eyes that are different. And beavers will know whether it is you. You see the fundamental provision. So whoever wants the outcome of 2023 election, ranging from, local government is out of it, ranging from state assembly to the office of the president, really reflect up to 70% the wishes of Nigerians, must insist that accreditation and voting are based only on the beaver's machine. Once you do that, fine. It means that those who are carrying other people's cards and those who will vote in one polling booth and rush to another place to vote again will be eliminated. The second thing I mentioned is another way of rigging. Your voters will spring from one polling unit to another, because voting and accreditation, they have a kind of a gap of about 2 hours in a place where voting starts early and counting starts early. Somebody who wants to vote double through manual accreditation can dash to the closest polling unit and polling booth. This is very fundamental. We need to eliminate all this from what is going on. Another thing they do, which we must put into consideration, they buy the votes. On a voting day itself, they buy votes. They come with very large cache of cash. In Ghana must go. You come there, they will tell you, vote for my candidate, and you collect 500, 1,000, sometimes even 5,000. I'm telling you, it goes on in Nigeria since 1999. Now, the amended Electoral Act has tried to see if it can checkmate that by saying that those who vote should not go to the polling booth itself with their mobile smartphones. Because what they do is that they go there and vote for where they will get money and snap the ballot paper and come to the person disbursing funds, show from their smartphone that this is the party they voted for, they get their cash. But if I were them, I'm telling you, I am advising them, collect the cash. Let me tell you how you can collect the cash and still deny them of the vote. If you are able to snap that you voted for party A, after snapping, vote for the person you want. When you do that, you have invalidated your vote. Yes, the person you want hasn't gained from you, but he hasn't lost, because your vote is not going to another person. That is what I will advise, because these people are evil. They don't want democracy. I will advise that unapologetically, because that is the way we can checkmate some of these things going on. Now, since that is what they do, we must not allow it. Party agents must be vigilant. They need to find those who are there with cash, make sure they find a way of reporting what they are doing to INEC, to security agencies, to their own party officials, their own collation points. Let their own party know that in a particular polling booth, this and this and that happening. When you do that, you are helping. In case of litigation, it will become part of the evidence to show why election result obtained through such a process must not be allowed to stand. It's very fundamental. Now, another thing, apart from the fact that the chairman, they buy votes there on the spot, we need to understand the collusion that we experience from the election security enforcers, security agents have not been neutral enough, as far as I am concerned. In fact, if you read the reports of local agents, that is what you call the monitoring groups and international monitoring groups. If you read their reports, and even the reports of INEC, you will see that even INEC is not happy with the way security agents have handled elections. They are not, you find that in their own reports. What I have personally observed is that when brazen election manipulation, election rigging is going on, and these things border on clear criminality, the security agents, including the police, they look the other way, and these things happen. Let me give you an example. Somebody would come to a polling unit with a Ghana must go loaded with cash. Is the polling unit now a bank? And money is being disbursed to people. I asked one of them once in an election. You know what the person told me? The person told me that, well, he came here to give his cousins that are going to travel money. I said, so is where they are voting, you give them money. You know, your cousins can't come home. They can't meet you somewhere else, but here, that was the answer I got. I drew the attention of the policeman there. He didn't do anything. Now, that brings in the next problem that leads to election rigging. Another issue that leads to election rigging in Nigeria is election security fund. Election security fund is not handled by INEC. Election security fund is handled by the executive arm of government. The executive arm of government that is standing for the same election is the one giving the police the money for election. There is what we call Piper syndrome in communications and journalism. Who pays the piper dictates the tune. If I am the IG of police and I receive 1 billion naira for election security, my dear, I have to be mindful of the person that brought the money. If I am the commissioner of police and I get 50 million naira for election security from the governor, my dear, I need to treat the governor with caution, because the money, right? Maybe I would want to ask for more in case what he gave me is not enough. Why do I have to antagonize the governor? That is why we have often said that election security and the police operations within the days of election must be submitted to the chairman of Independent National Electoral Commission. He will be the one to disburse the money for election security. He will be the man that will, within the 3 days, command the IG of police and the police commissioners. Until you do that, those who bring the money will insist on what the money will be used for and on. That is life for you. So it's another way election is rigged in Nigeria, because where the police and other enforcers can do something, because he may anger, he may not satisfy the person that brought the election and security fund. They don't want to really be as professional as
They ought to be.
And as hard as they should be. We have seen places on video. If you have not seen those videos I'll send to you, where police will enter collection centers and disperse people so that certain party representatives do not enter collection booths. We have seen where security agents have refused party representatives, candidate representatives from entering collection centers. They are on video. So it's not my opinion, it is a way of rigging election. Because if you are a candidate in this election and your own representative allowed where to witness, to see, to be part of collation of your own result, how on earth will you believe that that result was collated free and fair if it is not collated in your favor? You cannot. You're human. And we have seen this problem. You know, election litigation in Nigeria, the number of litigants, election litigation in Nigeria is the highest in the world. You can Google it. It's the highest in the world. The number of candidates that go back to court to see if they can recover what they consider their own mandate stolen is the highest in the world. And why is it so? Part of election funds and the election security, is what we are talking about. Overall, regarding election security, I am drawing our attention to one fact. Security agents in Nigeria have soft spot for any incumbent. Yes, it's not just my opinion. You can find that in the reports of local observers, international observers, and even the report of INEC, that they have soft spot for incumbents. What that means is that once an incumbent is contesting to return or has his own anointed candidate in an election, security will not be neutral.
So in your, should it be that every election there should be a new set or a new crop of security agents taken on board or brought on board just for the election process?
That is not what I say. I already gave a prescription. I have told us that the police for the 3 to 5 days of election should be placed under the command by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, under the command of the Chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission. Once you do that, whatever happens through security, what you call election security, the chairman of INEC will take responsibility. And the IG and his men will also defer to him because they know that by law they are under him. As it is now, the IG cannot listen to chairman of INEC on election day. By law, he is bound to listen to the president of the Republic of Nigeria. That is where the problem is. Don't forget that INEC chairman is even the appointer. The INEC chairman, the INEC chairman, the president of Nigeria is his appointer. And because the president of Nigeria is the appointer of the chairman of Independent National Electoral Commission, it does not allow the commission to be independent, because everything will have to be resting on the presumed neutrality of the president of Nigeria. The president of Nigeria is human, and he too may be going for re-election. Do you see where these whole things lie? The president is standing in election. He's the one giving IG or police money for election security. Who do you think the IG will listen to? This is natural. I am a social psychologist, and I'm talking from professional perspective. These are facts of elections in Nigeria. I'm not done yet. Let me give you more. You see, there are other ways they still rig election. Collation. You see, between the polling units where the results of the polling booths are gathered. By the way, I hope we know that when we say that Nigeria has 177,000 polling units, it doesn't mean polling booths. One polling unit has a cluster of 10, perhaps 20 or 30 polling booths, depending on the location. some may be less than 10, but some may be as many as 20. That is what happens. Now, when the votes, all the ballot boxes are brought to the polling unit, it will now be counted. If the party and candidate representatives are not there where the votes, the physical ballot papers are counted, physically counted, there will be a problem. A candidate can be rigged out, even if he won in that polling unit, it can be rigged out. That's one thing that happens there. It doesn't stop there. The candidate can also be rigged out if at the end of the day, you see, election statistics, have shown that the turnout for election in Nigeria is just on the average about 30%. What that means is that 70% of Nigerians don't turn out, but their ballot papers will be made available. You see where problem is? You have a polling booth of 500 voters, and only 150 turn out. What that means is that you have 350 ballot papers that are not utilized. If your candidate does not pay attention, another party's agent will buy the ballot papers that are not used, and they will turn print for the people that didn't come, and it will be computed in favor of the person that purchased. That is what goes on. We expect that if we insist on a Beavers accreditation, Beavers is equipped with the capacity to record the number of people accredited, and therefore would show the number of cards that are not used. That's what we expect. That is what happens on paper. But again, there's what they call incidence form. Incidence form is part of the rigging process. Incidence form that shouldn't be provided for more than maybe 10 pieces can be brought up to 200, 300 in a particular place. And the incidence form, once authenticated in a polling unit, in a polling booth, as having been entered into, it becomes a legal instrument. In other words, the individuals representing parties and candidates must insist that there must not, for any reason, be the use of incidence forms. And if it must be used, it has to be really minimal, maybe 2, 3, 5, certainly not more than 10. Once you allow incidence forms to be used beyond 10 voters that have presumably legitimate claims, then you have actually allowed the rigging to take place. Because remember, I told you that those who are carrying the cards, those who are carrying those cards may not be theirs. And those who carry cards that are not theirs, cards that were purchased by politicians, what they will do is to seek incidence form. Because incidence form is based on the fact that you cannot be accredited based on Beavers. So the only way to stop such people is to insist that there must be no use of incidence forms. That's the point. That's the simple logic. Once you allow it, it becomes a legitimate part of the figures that will be used in declaring the winner. I think I should stop here. Many more. Maybe during questions, I should be able to supply more.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll take questions from the comment section. We'll see Andrea. Please kindly raise your hand so that you'll be called on to ask your question. Please raise your hand and you'll be asked to unmute yourself and then ask your question. Okay. Gabriel Ogbe, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Gabriel, please unmute yourself. Okay, Gabriel can hear you.
Can you hear me? All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Doc, for the lectures. I've learned so much from your information you gave today. But I've gone through the new BMAS, that's the electoral guideline, and I've seen that most of the new updates is no more. The new updates have taken care of some of the issues raised. For instance, the issue of the incident form may not be arise again with the use of the beavers. But my concern now is where you mentioned that some places might jettison the use of the beavers because of an agreement between the agents. So if such a case arises, maybe connivance with the agents and maybe the popular party decide to buy up the agent of the opposing agent of the other parties, what would be the likely outcome of that election if the beavers is completely jettisoned and they ended up not accrediting through the, but they sort of do it manually? Secondly, we used to believe that the voters register, the register of voters, determine the ballot papers that go to a particular polling unit. But of late, the new guideline now says that is the number of PVC collected that would determine the number of ballot papers that go to the polling unit. If that becomes the case, there will be no more need for computing values on the basis of number of persons on the voters register, isn't it? So those are the few concerns I have. I will get to the clarity. I don't know whether the information you have given here is still part of the new guideline. I've gone through the guidelines a bit, but I've not really thoroughly studied as much as to get used to the new development that INEC is actually bringing on board. Thank you, sir. That's my questions and the information I want to give. I think it's clear, right?
Thank you very much. Doctor would respond to your question.
Okay.
Doctor, please, you've been sent a request to unmute so that you can attend to his question. Doctor, please unmute yourself and
I can unmute now. See, the white man will always tell you that it's better to err on the side of caution. On a paper, things are beautiful, right? And you presume that all is well until you get to the testing of the new and amended Electoral Act. I've read the amended Electoral Act, like at least 3 times, and I've asked questions. 2 questions you've asked, I have raised, the same queries. Do we need to still worry if the PVCs that are not collected will not count? But the desperation of the Nigerian politicians is so appalling. It's so terrible to the point that those PVCs that are not collected can be purchased by them, the way I know them. I'm telling you the gospel truth. And they will try to see if the unutilized PVCs can be used by their supporters that are not registered using the incidence form. That is what I am drawing attention to. I know that this is a very strong possibility. And these PVCs are not with INEC headquarters. They are with INEC in local government offices, local government. So how do you guarantee the fidelity of these cards in those places on election day? They can be hired. Those cards can be hired and returned after election. And you will not even have evidence that they were used if incidence form is used. So we need to understand some of these things. And you see, there is also a big problem of the fact that INEC does not have enough staff. The people that really organize the elections in Nigeria are ad hoc staff, youth corpers, mainly teachers, right? Underpaid. These ad hoc staff are not paid well. 10,000, 15,000. When you know that a politician is there with 50,000, 100,000, and this is Nigeria. Let's face reality. This is what goes on now. It's not that I suspect that they will or they would. My observation has been reflected in electoral or election reports as things that have actually happened that taint the outcome of Nigerian election results. And that is why I said, why is it that we have the highest number of election litigations in the world? It's because of these things. When somebody is not satisfied with the process, the outcome is never the issue even. If you lose and lose fairly, you will not worry, you will go home. But when you know that there are, issues rooted in a mystery, things that are so opaque that you didn't see and nobody allowed you to see, the heart is always conjuring up something. You will believe that the election results have been written against you. It may not be. And these things have led to people legitimately approaching the tribunals, going through the courts of appeal, going up to the Supreme Court, all in an attempt to prove that this election is not free and fair. That said, apart from the issue of ballot paper, not ballot paper this time now, but the issue of the PVCs that are uncollected, not accounting. I have already said, please don't take that to the bank. It may not cash. I've already given you reasons. If these things are right inside the office of Professor Yakubu, we may be looking up to one man. But here, we're talking about at least 774 locations where these cards are located as we speak, handled by more than 2,000-3,000 individuals who have access to the same office. How do you guarantee the fidelity? With incidence forms, those cards can be used and returned, and there will be no evidence. So insist that nobody should use incidence form for any reason. If you are not captured by beavers, please go home and wait for another election cycle. That is what I would recommend. Now, the first arm of your question was saying that, can you remind me again? You said something concerning moderator. Can you recall the first arm of his question?
Okay.
A moderator.
He did ask of election. He first said of PVCs, and then he talked about electoral guidelines that has been modified, even though he does not have full information of the guidelines and how it's applicable.
saying. There was a particular issue he mentioned, apart from modification of the guideline. If there is something he said that has been taken care of by the modified guideline, I can't, put my finger, can't wrap my head around that now. But on the fidelity of the modified electoral guideline, please, the white man will tell you that the taste of the pudding is in the eating. It has not been tested. They just did that. Now, there was one question I asked about internet penetrability, whether that will, because I'm aware that Nigerian internet penetrability may not be more than 50%. Then I asked a question regarding areas in the country where internet penetration has not really covered sufficiently. I was told that Beavers does not require internet penetrability to function. So I think to that extent, if that information is correct, that it does not require internet penetrability to work, that means it doesn't require maybe a backing at any level by the GSM providers and things like that, then we are home and dry with the issue of electronic voting and accreditation. I know that accreditation may not require internet. Yes, that I think is in order, that you don't require internet, because the machine is what you need, and the recognition and everything is supposed to be within the machine itself. But again, it is still questionable, because the issue of identification would have to draw, the machine will have to draw information. Information will have to be taken from somewhere that you consider the central server. And I don't want to believe that each Beavers machine contains all the voters, in Nigeria, or perhaps is configured to contain only the voters in the polling unit and polling booth. If that is what they have done, I think to the extent of accreditation, Beavers may not require internet access. But if you have to transmit the result, I don't know what other method that will be applied. Using my little knowledge of information communication technology, I don't know any other method that would permit you to transmit results from the polling unit to the central server or the central collation point without having access or without having to rely on internet connectivity. I will check this out further. I asked that question, they gave me this answer, but I'm not too satisfied. If that is the same question himself is asking, he should reach me, back channels, so that we'll work on it together.
All right, Gabriel, I hope that was taken care of. Let's take the next question from Stanley. Stanley, if you're still here, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Stanley, are you here?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Hello.
Please unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, good evening, all, and good evening to Dr. Law Mefor. Thank you. Very educative. Thank you. Very educative and very enlightening session you have. I think the problem with our country, I've been present in several elections, watching, voted, and like Doctor had mentioned earlier, if only the Beavers can be able to transmit results from the polling units directly without having to go from one local government, then to the state capital, from that state capital to the headquarters of INEC, because these movements are where impunity are being perfected. And then secondly too, the beavers would have also saw, because we hear several times, because I have also been close to some aspirants, different parties, no particular party to mention, but I've been close to some aspirants who tell you how much they have paid to INEC staff to give them sensitive materials or give them upper hands in the electoral material that they use to turn their opponents, albeit illegally. So I think the only way we can be self-assured that our votes will count in Nigeria is for beavers to work perfectly the way it is being talked about. Because anything short of that, my brothers and sisters, is still going to be a very tough fight. But we can't give up. We must continue to fight until everybody knows that his or her vote actually counts. They must transmit it right there where the votes are being casted. And I don't know why it is so impossible for us to get to that technology that is almost seen all over the world. At least most European and American countries, you transmit results live immediately as you are punching in your votes. There and then, when the results are declared at the polling units, it should be gotten at the head office of INEC rather than going from my local government. Then they go to the state capital. Then from the state capital, they now start transmitting to Abuja. Maybe one ballot box, they snatch ballot box, they do this, they do that. In fact, I think that is the only thing, the only hope we have is that the beavers should work. And that is only when we can be guaranteed that the government really means well for good governance in Nigeria. This is just my own contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you very much. Do we have more questions? If you have a question, please kindly raise your hand and you'll be called on to ask a question.
Now, I want to add a bit to what my brother just said. See, let's face reality. You can use beavers to do accreditation, use beavers to do this and that. If you are not able to transmit the outcome of the beavers' imputations and computations to the server where collation is taking place, you haven't done anything as far as I am concerned. And that is why I was talking about that internet penetrability. That if the internet will not be needed, beautiful. It means that where you don't have a internet cover, where you don't have internet cover, where you don't have internet cover, you can rely on the inbuilt capacities of the beavers. But if you cannot transmit the results to the collation point, the electric, if you are familiar with what you call Excel package, that's what my brother was talking about. As you are punching in your vote, the total is appearing on the other end. You don't need any assistance. The computation is done by the machine itself. But if you will have to wait until they carry the beavers to where they will have network to enable them to transmit, they can alter the figures still. I don't think that any machine is made to the point that those who know the codes cannot break into it and alter the figures as they want. What I believe that will carry the ultimate fidelity is the, taking care of real time. Real time here, I mean, as you are voting, just like my brother said, as you are voting, the result is appearing. And the point where collation is taking place is being observed by INEC officials, by party representatives, and nobody will be given the chance to begin to, alter the figures. Because as you're doing that, people with their smartphones are capturing what you are doing. People with their smartphones are capturing what you are doing. and they are there and then challenging you. And it's not just one party. In the presidential election, you have 18 political parties, and I'm aware that 16 of them have already submitted their forms, waiting to nominate the vice presidential candidate. So we need to keep interrogating this, because if there will be no electronic transfer of results, instanta, I don't think that we have much to hope for as an outcome to rely on in 2023 general elections. Nothing has changed as far as I am concerned. That's my view, and I stand to be corrected.
Thank you very much, Doctor. That's in-depth. You've really gone in-depth on the topic of discussion for today. However, in conclusion, we would like for you to give us your closing remarks on the topic that we have talked about today. For time's sake, we will be wrapping up in about 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me yet another opportunity to wrap up. First, I want to thank the wonderful audience. When I checked the number of participants, quite overwhelming. It means I've not been talking to the pretty lady alone. We have a great audience that has been participative as well. They understand how important this issue is to us in Nigeria. And even those of them who are not resident in Nigeria, if perhaps more worried than those of us who are here in Nigeria on the need to have an election that people can say that is that this is the outcome, this is the wish of the people. Nobody is saying that democracy is necessarily the best method to ensure development. I don't think anybody has ever argued that. But democracy ensures what you call the will of the common superior, majority having their say, having their way, and minority having their say. That is what democracy ought to ensure. And the ultimate demonstration of the people's will is in election. Election is predicated on choices. People have their choice. For example, the 4 key political parties in this election at presidential level, APC, PDP, Labour, and then NNPP, have brought their candidates. Those are choices. People choose who they want. You have Ahmed Tinubu there, you have Peter Obi there, you have Atiku there, and you have Kwankwaso. People have choices. But the problem is that when the people attempt to choose who they want, they are bridged by certain technicalities. And these technicalities, once they do not allow people to express their wishes in terms of choices, they constitute rigging. Rigging simply means thwarting the will of the people in choosing who should govern them. It does not matter who they choose. That is my position. If they choose an idiot, they will live with it. That's their problem. But no one man is wise enough to decide for 210 million Nigerians who should be their president. That is why I am interested in this subject matter. I believe it is fundamentally important that the beaver's machine must work, and all else that will make the beaver's machine unable to transmit results instantly from the polling units after the collection of the ballot papers or ballot boxes and the counting and reading out the results there at the polling units and transmitting same to the collation points. Then it means that the people's wishes can still be thwarted somewhere along the line. Why I say this is because from experience, since 1999, I have been very, very active. The only difference is that I have not been involved in participating as a candidate or as an aspirant. I don't want, because I don't believe in the process, and I don't have money to bribe anybody, bribe whoever, police, electors, INEC officials, like my brother said. I will not do that. And why we are fighting is to have fidelity infused in our electoral process, so that some of you will be able to return home, those of you who are not in Nigeria, and those of you who are not in the Southeast will be able to go home and contest election, win or lose, based on what you were able to do, and not because you didn't have money to bribe anybody. That's what this whole thing is all about. Rigging in Nigeria has become institutionalized. I want you to read one article, just one article. The article, I wrote it few days ago, not more than 5 days ago, which I believe, inspired the TV station to ask me to come and explain further. The title of the article is as banal as how elections are rigged in Nigeria. When you read the article, just Google it, it's everywhere. Google it, read it, send more queries to me. You see my phone numbers, you see my Twitter account or handle, you will see my email address. I want this conversation to continue beyond this point. Call me up, let's talk. Let us ensure that there is democracy in Nigeria. I don't want military to return to the turf, because they haven't proved to be any better. But what we have in Nigeria is tending towards one-party system. It is tending towards fascism. Let me tell you why I am scared of it. Many people may not know. In fact, a military dictator is better than fascism. You know why? The world will know that you are in a military dictatorship. In fascism, it appears to, it is chameleonic. It will present itself as a democratic setting. If you tell anybody in Nigeria that we have dictatorial problems in Nigeria, they will ask you, but you just finished an election. Why did you retain the same man? But you and I, may not be able to swear to God that our votes return Buhari. But it is there nonetheless. That is what makes fascism very, very terrible. And without election that is credible, free, and fair, dependable, accountable, the wish of the people totally reflected, you will never call that democracy. That's just my submission. And I believe that we can do it. Yes, we can. Let us deal with this facade called the election in Nigeria, and give you the semblance of what obtained in other climes. There are practices. I'm not even asking for the best practices. I'm not even asking for that. I'm asking for the basics. Let people vote. Let their vote be counted. Let the count count. That's all I am saying. Nothing more, nothing less. I thank you once more for this wonderful opportunity to share with my people.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lord. We really do appreciate you. Let the count count. As we prepare as a country, as a nation, to hit the polls come 2023, I'd encourage you all to go get your PVCs and, of course, do the needful. Vote your conscience. Do not forget, this is Newsbell. Do well to follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more information. From me to you, thank you so much. And thank you so much, Doctor, for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Pleasure is always mine.
Have a pleasant night rest. Good night.